Okay, welcome everybody.
How's everyone doing?
See you're heading and coming in. Good. Up to 15, 16, 17, 20. Welcome everybody to the great Zoom interwebs. Nikan, do you want to, because you got a pretty great background behind you, mine is sort of more boring and prosaic, but do you want to tell folks where you're at?
Yeah, this is actually a green screen. So no, I'm just kidding. We're in San Diego, downtown San Diego. If anyone is familiar with the area, where our headquarters is, like right in the center of Horton Plaza. So right where all the good food is and all the fun's happening here downtown.
Yeah, I was like chatting with Nikan, obviously, because it's fun to chat with him, but then also he's got that kind of great view behind him. And I mean, I've got my living room, which is maybe less interesting. Okay, we're up to about 40 folks. I'm gonna wait till like a couple minutes past the hour to kind of get started. If folks just want to sort of like say in the chat where you're calling in from, it'd be great. Be good to get a sense of who's here and what stuff you're interested in. If you're an agency owner, an agency developer, a freelancer, maybe more on the client side, maybe just a dev that's like curious about agency world. Maybe someone that's more on the marketing side, etc. Like just, who you are, what you're here for, what you're kind of interested in. Let's see, Q&A. Looks like chat is disabled, darn. I think we had this problem last time and I may figure this out. Or I may not figure this out. Let's see if I can figure out this meeting settings while we are waiting for folks to come in. Great to agency owner from Vincenzo says he is an agency owner from Italy. Great, Vincenzo, great to meet you. If I don't manage to get the chat working, which we may not, we're probably just going to end up with the Q&A. Unfortunately, I think I'm the only person who can see the Q&A, but just type it in and I'll sort of I'll see it and I'll kind of call it out when as we're going along. Okay, so we're a couple minutes past the hour. I'm just going to kind of kick us off. Looks like we've got about 50 folks here so far. We had about 350 register, so I'm sure we'll have some more trickle in. But great to have everybody here. And we've got Daniel, agency owner from Perth, Western Australia. Thanks for staying up so late. Geez, I don't even want to know what time it is. It's probably like midnight over there. Thank you for staying up so late. Or no, Western Australia, so maybe it's not so late. But so I'm Sam Bhagwat. I'm the co-founder of Gatsby. I'm here with Nikan Shahidi, who's the founder and CEO of Webstacks, which is an agency that we know very well. And it's kind of a different webinar today. We just chatted a lot with Webstacks. They were our agency of the year last year, and whenever we chat, we kind of see some of the real sort of like really interesting practices that they've sort of like pioneered, and they've just grown from sort of 0 to 50 folks within a couple of years. And we really wanted to just profile and share their story for everyone here who is, an agency owner, an agency developer, someone that's like looking to grow their business either as like a kind of leader within the business or, someone who's on a client side trying to work with agencies, really just talking about kind of best practices and profiling sort of the story of one story of success. Can look like a lot of things, obviously, but one story of what success looks like, kind of by diving into Nikan's story. Without further ado, I think I'll sort of try to pass the mic away from me towards Nikan. And it's great to have you here, Nikan. Super excited to have you. Maybe we can just start off, like, can you just tell everybody a bit about yourself and kind of how you got into the tech world?
Yeah, totally. I would say for me, it started when I was 13, 14, as far as like getting my hands dirty with technology and software development. I created an app, very novel app, very basic app. When I was 13, posted it on these forums, got like a little fan club on the forums. I was doing my own little marketing there, posting it across the forums. And that was really what, like, honestly got me super passionate about software development and design and development in particular.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, I think like a lot of folks sort of here are kind of in the situation that you find yourself in sort of, a few years ago, where they're kind of a freelancer, maybe like an agency owner, kind of working with clients, looking for a break. Can you like, so you got involved with Service Titan, and for those who are like, can you just tell us a little bit about how and that was, can you tell us a little bit about how that happened?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, and a lot of people don't know this actually, like Webstacks, like the origin story of Webstacks was like foundationally started on like me freelancing, right? So Service Titan actually came through Upwork. It was just like a normal, simple Upwork proposal. I got to know the Service Titan team. They're based in Glendale. I'm in San Diego. So it was kind of like a relationship where I could go into the headquarters, built a pretty strong relationship originally with their team that expanded as we got to work with each other. What's really interesting about Service Titan is like they had a marketing leadership change, and that pushed the development of the Gatsby website. And they had previously used Gatsby, and that was kind of like the driving force that introduced myself to Gatsby, and the rest is kind of like history.
So and Service Titan at the time, they're like a unicorn, right? Or like pretty big tech company.
Yeah, Service Titan at the time had just done their Series D. They were, I think, like 4 billion evaluation. And
Okay.
it was kind of like one of those I made it moments.
Okay, so you kind of get sort of like this big local tech company kind of brings you in to help them with their website. You're like, okay, cool, I got this like big fish, and like what kind of happens after that? What time is it? Also, like what year is this, by the way?
Right. So this is like pre-Webstacks origin story. I would say like I'm freelancing. I'm doing my own thing. I'd left my job at like a marketing agency and wanted to do my own thing, and took to Upwork to start freelancing. So that's kind of like the backstory behind how I arrived at Service Titan. What happened next was that kind of like the dominoes fall, right? So I explained I got involved very heavily with Service Titan's marketing team, and really like embrace the culture of like B2B tech, and what kind of like people are working in B2B tech, what kind of like priorities they have, their culture. And that was something that was ultimately going to be like the foundation of what Webstacks would become.
So walk us through sort of like can you walk everybody kind of through? So, and I think as we kind of go through this conversation, I think we're probably going to go like chronologically, and then like we're going to end up talking a lot about sort of like agency practices. Now Webstacks is like a 50-person agency, and we're going to like just, we're going to sort of end up talking about, hey, what's it like running an agency at scale, and sort of some of the best practices there. But I also think it's like, I also want to spend some time just kind of on the growth and evolution to how you got there. Because I think, it's always hard to see best practices outside of sort of like, understanding the journey and the story. So we're going to spend some time on the journey and the story, and then we're going to spend some time on sort of like best practices at some sort of scale. So can you walk everybody through sort of like what was the first project with Webstacks, and how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, take a couple steps back. Obviously, the core to like being able to do a successful project is like having a successful team, right? And a lot of times I hear that like there's agency owners that want to like jump into the first couple hires and what they do, how they should handle the hiring process for that. And for us in particular, it was about building a strong core group of contractors, right? Like people that you can trust, people that can handle the work that is inconsistently coming in. Like as a new business, you don't have that like lead flow, you don't have that inbound pipeline that can justify the risk potentially of bringing on full-time employees. So like the first step was investing, at least my time early on, was like vetting contractors on Upwork, on these freelance networks, to find a group of contractors that like knew the tech stack, knew what we were doing or what I was doing at that time, and then like being able to execute. And I can tell you, like right now, some of the contractors that originally were with us with 2-3 years ago, as I was freelancing and part of that like core group, are still part of the core group. Some of them have even become full-time employees.
That's great. Yeah. No, I love that, because it all starts with the team you build, and it starts with finding that. So where did you where did you find those folks?
Like I said, yeah, Upwork is a huge one. I think any sort of freelance network that you can like build kind of these relationships almost on a dime with a prospective freelancer is huge. So Upwork was like the predominant network or like tool that I was using early on to find this talent. And it worked out pretty well, I would say.
So give us like timeline for the first project. You start, when do you start it? Sort of when do you deliver, after you deliver, like how big is your team at that point?
Right. So first project with ServiceTitan, I would say like ServiceTitan is the best point of reference for Webstacks as we like evolved into a company. First project started, I would say like middle of 2019. So that's when things get started. That's more of, Nikan, the freelancer, popping in, making changes on the website, like being this tool for ServiceTitan that like traditionally that marketing team like didn't have an in-house developer. And you'd be surprised at how many like B2B software companies that, have these massive engineering organizations don't have those resources internally for their marketing team. So the first 6 months was like kind of like building that relationship, kind of hopping in, fixing things. It was more, as needed type of engagement. And then around November or so of 2019, there was this big project, which was to get ServiceTitan's website onto modern front-end tech stack, which is ultimately what allowed us to become Webstacks in and of itself. So once that happened, we wrapped up the ServiceTitan project around 2021, like first month of 2020. So it was a really, really fast delivery. Like that was a huge piece of what ServiceTitan was looking for. And a lot of B2B tech companies are looking for is like speed. We want to get something out there as quickly as possible. And like I said before, that kind of became the foundation for how Webstacks was going to build its product and build the services around this idea of speed, velocity, MVP, getting things out, and then ultimately making changes, iterations over a period of time.
Yeah, I really want to dive into that, because I feel like as we've talked and had conversations, you guys have a super unique process there that's really different from a lot of what we've seen, and it really sort of helpful for on the client angle and for landing customers. Before we get there, we've got a question here from Nicole Phillips, who asks, how did you vet on Upwork? I'd love to learn more about that, because the people piece is so hard.
Sure. Vetting on Upwork is not as complicated as it seems. You just got to kind of like put a little bit of early effort in. And one of the things that we did, or I did early on, and we actually still do when we're vetting contractors on Upwork, is create test projects. And they're paid projects. Like you do an investment in the contractor early on, instead of just gambling with a contractor. You have a few conversations, you're like, let's go in. With this one, you put them on a production project and then things start falling apart. What we do is we do a test project. We have a certain process in how we build things, and we'll get to that. But we want to ensure that the contractors can and freelancers can build in the way that Webstacks does, with the kind of like philosophy that we have around the website.
That's great. Yeah. And I think we're going to hit that process more. Nicole, thanks for asking the question. Everyone feel free to put sort of like more questions in the Q&A, whatever sort of, whatever you're curious about as we keep talking. So, you know, you're walking us through sort of like the delivery of the project with Service Titan and how you guys were working on that. You know, and how you're kind of like getting into B2B tech. Just you know, can you walk us a little bit through sort of like what happened next, what happened after that, and maybe some of the projects that you've, you know, that was kind of the origin, and then like some of the projects since then that maybe you're the most proud of.
Yeah, for sure. I would say for me personally, like the projects that are the most impressive are the ones, and the ones I'm most proud of that kind of our team has accomplished are the ones that are the fastest, right? Because like time is something that is so valuable, and the ones that get to market quicker are the ones that I've found to be the most, you know, impressive internally for me. So I selfishly will like lean on those ones, but one in particular.
Let's go down that trail then. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your process for, you know, we'll get back to to what those are, but let's talk about your process for like getting things to market really quickly. Like we've talked before, and you sort of you've talked about how you can get sort of a project out, like a website out within like 3 months, which I just found incredibly impressive. And sort of like, you know, sort of sign a contract in a month, get a website out within 3 months, and sort of work on it from there. So how do you do that?
Great question. So our entire kind of like methodology here at Webstacks is like the website is a product, and this product consists of 2 users, right? You have your content editors, your marketers on one side, and then you have your prospects and website visitors on the other side. And oftentimes the focus of a lot of agencies is on the users only and the visitors of the website, and they build this beautiful website, which, don't get me wrong, a lot of these are beautiful websites and they may convert really well as well, but are almost like unusable on the back end for content editors, whether they're too scared, there's not enough enablement to teach them about how to use the CMS, or when they do go in, they create a Frankenstein website with, you know, almost like too much variation and control. So like we're a huge proponent of modular design, breaking things up into components, reusable components, and then providing content editors, marketers in most cases with the tools, the documentation, the enablement that can allow them to build these pages on brand autonomously without tapping into a developer every single time.
That's awesome. So I want to sort of like, can you show us the tool you use in your prospecting sort of process or in your contract process? I think that's going to help a lot of folks sort of see when you say modular website, what do you mean by modular?
Yeah, I'll start here with the design system, because I think that's kind of like the core foundation here of what Webstacks is doing. So if you're looking right here, Figma is kind of like our design team's tool. And, you know, Gatsby and React is like our engineering tool, but it's important that they're speaking the same language, right? Like we're bought in as a team. There's alignment from our sales, our CS, our design and development on what product we're delivering and how we're delivering it. And this concept of modular design is prevalent throughout our entire company, right? So what you're looking at here is the design system that we build out for all of our clients. It starts with, if you guys are familiar with the atomic design design philosophy, starts with the atoms, which are just, you know, the basic building blocks of your website. And I know this, like for a lot of agencies, you're looking at this and like, whoa, that must have taken hours and hours of work to like put together. But we invested time in building out a template that we then reuse for a lot of our clients. So getting something like this out the door requires very little kind of, you know, hourly effort over the course of a longer period of time, and more of an isolated investment. And this obviously like grows and adapts and evolves as we start, you know, learning and hearing feedback from our customers. But it starts with the foundational elements, the atoms of the website, the colors, typography, how certain elements are going to be presented on the website. And what's really cool about this is also, you know, used across the board for other web properties, whether it's, you know, not their marketing website, but social media assets, or even, you know, doc site for a lot of software companies that use had like API documentations or things like that. So moves into things like buttons, drop downs, all of the elements that you would see on the website. And these are hyper extensible. You can see we're giving variation, we're giving modularity to content editors to add icons. If you want the icons to be leading or trailing, and the button size and variations, these are all adopted by Figma and then ultimately put into the design system. But the more important part, or the exciting part, is these components, right? These are the Lego blocks. These are kind of like the pieces of the website that content editors can then use to build out pages, right? This also becomes like a living, breathing source of truth for post-launch, right? You have these building blocks as a foundation, and what's next? How can we add? What kind of variation can we bring? How do we want to tell this story later? So what we're looking at here is a heading component. We'll design it out in multiple display types with multiple variations. You might have dark mode, you might have light mode. I'll go into the hero. This is probably a little bit more exciting for you guys because this is like the most common element on a website. But like you see, we're a proponent of having the least amount of components with the most amount of variation. You don't want to have like 100 content models that are hero, one with a hero, image, one with a hero video, one with a hero, whatever, right? Let's have the least amount of components with the most amount of variation. So this is like our design process. This then ties directly into our engineering process with Storybook. So from a development standpoint, our development team is tapping into this design system. And if you guys are seeing me move around, I just have a really cool camera. So hope that's not making anyone dizzy. And this becomes like another like living, breathing source of truth for like our clients to look at and see what components, what building blocks do we have on our website to build out these pages. So if I jump in here to the hero component, you can see the hero component. You can see all of the fields that are available for content editors in the CMS, whether it's Contentful or Dado or Sanity or anything, and you can make the changes in real time. So you can get flexible, you can get comfortable in what the concept of these like components are without having to mess with the CMS and fear of breaking anything, or really just it's fundamentally just enablement, right? It's enabling marketers and then also enabling engineers when we start onboarding them to building on these projects on what each one of these props are, what are these components, how are they used, and this becomes a tool ultimately not only for us, but if in the future our clients want to onboard their own engineers, they have this documentation that makes it as quick as possible to get started on the projects that we're working on.
Yeah, so I think the really interesting thing about this is that like typically we don't see that marketers have access to Storybook. Storybook is like a design and dev tool, but like it's interesting to see you build this out not just for the dev team, but like for your marketer clients.
Absolutely, we throw it on a subdomain. It's completely available for the clients to look at, and it becomes a living and breathing thing. So when there's a new release and there's a new component available, they can see that, they can see the variations, and also they can give feedback and say, hey, I want to add another variation to this component, and it just keeps things kind of like.
And then how do they sort of like build pages with this?
So the next piece is like all of these components are tied to content models in the CMS. So when they go into the CMS, they'll see exactly the same naming convention that you're seeing here, and they could drag and drop and rearrange components however they want based on what is available in Storybook.
That's awesome. Yeah, so okay, that's super cool. I feel like that. So we see folks who are like, this is sort of like one of the weird tricks of like client success is if you can get clients who really feel comfortable building their own pages, like 95% of the time, like they'll be happy. Because like they'll feel like they can drive the car. They won't feel like it's your system or your website. They'll feel like it's our website. And they like understand what's going on. So like props for like building the system, and thanks for like walking everybody here kind of through it. Can you share a little bit about sort of how so this is sort of the modular building blocks of the website. Can you talk a little bit about your sort of like modular kind of like website proposal process and a little bit, and then we can talk a little bit about how you guys deliver our websites after that.
Totally. So for agency owners or freelancers, like one of the most challenging things and most time consuming things is pricing and scoping, creating proposals. And what we've done is take this modular approach to the way we price website projects. So we created a calculator. You can use Retool for this. You could use any kind of, you can build it custom yourself, but we found, using something like Retool to build an internal tool really quick is effective. And what we do is we actually share this with our prospects as they're coming in. So this puts the power back into the prospect's hand on how to align on budget, what they need relative to how much their spend is, and ultimately reduces the amount of time our sales team has or needs to have on quoting a project.
Can you
So
make it a
once,
little bit bigger? I think it's only part of the screen. If you can just like make the window like command. Yeah, there we go. That's great. Yeah, okay.
cool. So once prospects are like bought in to our process, we walk them through our process, walk them through the design system, the whole entire modular approach. The next kind of like phase is identifying how we can work together and ultimately putting a proposal together. So we take this modular approach to how we price things. So we've created this calculator here, and we have these like little autofill options to save us a little bit of time. So if I go here to enterprise, which is typically what we would find our enterprise customers are looking for when it comes to building out a robust website. And you can toggle in, maybe they want like 15 animations. The illustrations are typically high for software companies. They need to illustrate their product in ways that their screenshot probably can't do. And maybe there's 3,000 pages that need to be migrated. So we'll click calculate. Oops, I gotta go ahead and do the front end framework as well. And this gives a starting point for our prospects to start pulling back, right? They're like, oh, I wanted all of this from the beginning. I don't have, a $250,000 budget. This is crazy. Like this isn't going to work for me. And that's kind of like the point. The point is like for you to be able as a prospect to start adjusting these things and build on modularly for the future. So you might go in here and say, you know what? I'm going to go 5 animations and I only need 5 illustrations. And in real time, our prospects can see they just chalked their budget down 50K, right? And then they start, talking with their team and they're like, do we need to start with the webinar listing page? Do we need to start with like an integrations listing and integrations detail? Can we build these with the components that we have and get an MVP up? And all of a sudden we're finding that some companies are going from, this 200,000 initial one to like a 50K website ready to launch in 90 days. And that's intentional, right? Like we want prospects to be able to get something up and running really, really quickly. And then that other 150K budget that they had, spend that over the course of, a 12-month engagement with Webstacks to improve once the initial product is out the door. So this becomes like a really, really appealing, low barrier to entry type of relationship with Webstacks and prospects, where we're not really competing with agencies that are charging $500,000, $250,000 and promising a website in 12 months.
Yeah, this is like fascinating. I mean, you guys are putting the control back in the client's hands. A lot of clients just feel like, well, I write this RFP and then I send it into the void and then I get back these things that don't even match. And you're like, no, let's flip the script. You put in what you want here, and then we can scope this, and then then you can get a website quickly. A lot of, I think one thing that we can often forget is that a lot of sort of planning processes happen on a quarterly basis. So, it's the end of October right now. If someone's able to sort of start the process now, and then like, they could have their website maybe by like mid-February or like, beginning of March, and like that. So like, basically like they can make plans for Q1 and then like, hey, they can get a website in Q1 and not wait until Q2 or whatever. And then they can kind of iterate and go from there. So like, and just like the reduction of risk so that's like one thing. It's like fast that I love about this fast iteration cycles. The second one, reduction of risk. Like you said, people can take their budget instead of like putting it all up front, and they can reserve it and sort of spread it out over the course of a year. So this is just like a really really interesting thing that you guys have done, and thank you for sort of like sharing this with everybody here. can you just talk a little bit about so like the B2B tech world, and like is there any client education involved here where people like, people are used to maybe just doing the big upfront budgets and you have to like mindset shift them to like, yeah, you're gonna invest a little bit of money for a website that we deliver quickly and then you're gonna spend it later? Like, is that weird at all?
Not really. Once people see the process, and I'm sure you guys who are watching this kind of like are experiencing this in real time. Like once you see the process, you kind of get bought in. It's actually like a really exciting prospect and far different than most agencies and how they pitch things. Sam, one thing I wanted to point out, like it looks like there's some Q&As coming in about this, and before we like
we can answer a couple of these. Like, so Sunny asks, can you share the link for the calculator?
Yeah, I'm happy to share the link. It'll expire though, so
okay.
But yeah, it's kind of like an expiry thing.
Okay, we can maybe drop it in the after when we're sending out the recording, then in a couple or unless you John Faber asks, are these fixed bids?
Yes. So John, these are fixed bids. The idea here is that once we calculate this, we're aligning with the prospects on what the delivery is. What are these components that are being promised for this amount, and then you can scale up. What we found is like we're very, very confident as a business delivering within this pricing range for these components, and we've been able to do it successfully. But like you can shift the price per template and per component based on how your business is run and your profit margins at the end of the day.
Okay, that's good to get that level of sort of like clarity on. Then Daniel asks, how much is your pricing modified for scale versus growth versus enterprise?
I'll just show you. So I'll just go here. I'll do scale, click calculate. You don't want to do 3,000 pages. I'll just do like 100 pages. So scale usually falls at around $60,000. Growth, $83,000, and then enterprise around $140,000.
Okay.
This is usually the foot in the door with Webstacks, and ultimately, 60 or 70% of our projects end up going into some sort of ongoing engagement over the course of a 12-month period.
Okay. Can you, I actually realized like maybe you can just drop the link in the chat right now, because that would probably get it to John.
Can I? Yeah, I can do that, right?
You think we have access to the chat? Okay, great. So the link is in the chat now. So great. Okay, so client, you said like folks generally, we're talking about client education. So let's then let's talk about the second half of this, which is how do you guys charge on an ongoing basis, and like what types of projects? Like, okay, so you ship like sort of like the initial version of the website with like the stuff they really want and need, and then you sort of empower them and give them the tools within their CMS to build the pages that they any additional pages that they might want, with the components that they are part of their storybook library. What additional work do you guys work on after that, after you deliver the initial project typically?
Yeah, so our flagship kind of like retainer product is called our product teams, and what those really are kind of like a proactive way of us growing the website for the clients that we work with. So a lot of times the hardest thing to achieve for a lot of marketing teams is like website velocity, right? Like you can have all the resources, you can have a full team, but if you don't have the process and systems in place to grow your website, then it's all for naught. You have, you're paying like an agency $300 an hour, and they give you, 100 hours a month, and you only use 20 hours because you don't have kind of like the systems in place to do that. So our product teams are essentially units of designers, developers, and product managers, and their entire goal is on a bi-weekly basis, shipping new initiatives to the website, learning from the companies that we work with and what's working in B2B tech, and ultimately using those findings to continue growing the website. So sometimes it might be something as little as creating a new component or a new way to tell a story. Another time it might be creating a resource hub to store all of the different types of content that a company might have, like webinars, white papers, etc.
I love that. So, small, it's like a component, large, maybe it's a new, page type basically, or a collection or whatever. I think one thing that we sort of, it can be easy to forget is that a lot of times we're working and we're serving them as a website, we're serving the marketing department, and the marketing department's always coming up with new initiatives, but they often need the tech to deliver those initiatives. And so just shifting our mindset. A couple of people said that they couldn't see the link in the chat. So we put it in again, and then it looks like folks are able to access it now. So great on that. Thanks for alerting us on that front. Okay, so we started off talking about the Webstacks, kind of your origin story. Then we sort of shifted into the evolution of Webstacks, the first projects, how you found and sourced like the first few folks. Now we talked about some of the practices at scale, with building and sort of delivering projects, with pricing. Let's I guess talk a little bit about some of the projects now that you've sort of shared some of your tools. Let's go back to the earlier question about like, what are some of the things that you guys are most proud of, like having worked on and having delivered?
Yeah, great way of like tying that back. I would have totally forgot that. So like I was saying, the one that I'm most proud of, I would say, is ShopMonkey. So if you go to shopmonkey.io, one reason why I'm particularly proud of the work that our team did on the ShopMonkey website is that ShopMonkey had come to us having had unsuccessful stints with other agencies and kind of used essentially a full year to try to redesign their website and reimagine their brand. And it didn't really go so well for them. So they felt like they were 12 months behind, and they came to Webstacks and were like, hey, we really want to get this out the door. We see what you're doing with this modular design. Can we get this done in 90 days? And we not to toot our own horn, knocked it out of the park. It was a very, very, very successful project. We've been working with them ever since. And it's just one of those that I personally have like a proud spot for, given the kind of scenario that ShopMonkey was in at that time. The other one I would say is Calendly. So if you guys haven't heard of Calendly, they're kind of like the gold standard when it comes to like product-led growth in like the software space. And they had just gone through a redesign of their website and a large rebrand with a Silicon Valley agency. And at the end of that, delivery of their website, it was like unusable, right? Things weren't modular. Every page was kind of like a skeleton, and all you could really do is change images and text. And their marketing team was like, well, we have this website that we've kind of like invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in, and we can't make any changes to it. So that was like a 3-month project of taking their website, breaking it up into these components, creating the content models in Contentful, which was their CMS, and ultimately giving their marketing team these Lego blocks to build out pages autonomously. Since then, we've like helped them with the design of their website, done a lot of like rebranding of how their visual assets are on their website. And I would say that that's also one of the proudest that our team has been able to.
Thanks. No, that's a great story. I feel like the problem that you've identified there is so many marketing departments just feel like they don't have any control of their website, and it like looks fine, and like the users might like it, but like they can't modify it with ongoing work. So we started off talking a little bit about kind of hiring and with your first team, and I want to circle back there again. So now that you're kind of you're sort of at some amount of scale with 50 55 folks, these days when you guys are hiring, like how do you think about that? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I would say like particularly with our engineering team, we've kind of like approached a hiring process that doesn't really discriminate against like the backgrounds that these engineers are coming from. We hire a lot of boot camp grads, a lot of people at Webstacks are kind of like taking their first steps into a professional engineering kind of like workforce. And a lot of times you can see that'd be a challenge, right? Like managing new professionals comes with its own challenges. But like I said, creating the process, creating the enablement, the onboarding that we're doing for our engineering team is what has like allowed us to be successful in this way. And that's kind of like what we're looking for, you know, like this is a opportunity for a lot of young professionals to get exposure to really, really exciting technologies like React and just JavaScript, building on JavaScript in general, that a lot of other agencies don't have or can't really compete in. They're in this like WordPress box or they're in this Shopify box, and they don't offer kind of like this approach to
how do you onboard
important.
folks that are maybe like doing their first professional, software engineering gig?
Sorry, what was that?
So you talked about how you brought on folks that were like, maybe doing their first engineering role, who are like, how do you onboard that type of employee?
Great question. So as part of like our onboarding process, one of the big pieces is using like our own marketing website as a playground. Our marketing website adheres to the same practices and processes that we do for our clients. So we have a Gatsby contentful stack, and for the first like 30, 45 days of onboarding, our new engineers are getting exposure to putting their first PRs out and actually getting a feel for what it is to build the Webstacks way.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. And I also really liked what you said about like, it gives folks a different career trajectory than maybe if they were in a WordPress world or like a different kind of technology world. Can you talk a little bit about like, you guys are very immersed in like the selling into the B2B space. Can you just talk a little bit about that culture and the culture that you've built at Webstacks?
Yeah, I would say like the culture here at Webstacks is something that's like super, super important to us. Like we run regular surveys. Like it's one of the things that I'm most proud of here at Webstacks, and it's always evolving, just like our onboarding process, always evolving, trying to make it better and honestly help like our developers get up and running as quickly as possible with the least amount of friction. The same thing goes with like the culture of our team in general. We're looking for those people that have that hunger, that hustle, and they're really, really excited about the opportunity of getting their foot in the door in this space of B2B tech that is like so elusive. It's a really exciting prospect of working in that space, and we're looking for talented individuals that are hungry and want to be a part of something like
I
us.
love it too, like in the sense of like you guys have gotten some really interesting clients, and in some ways a lot of your value for your employees is that like it's a pipeline into this world that they want, and like kind of exposure into a fast growing sector, an exciting sector, that and in by selling into the space, you're kind of part of the space too. So I think that's sort of like really interesting, and it's kind of a reminder to all of us that like a lot of times the worlds that we are part of with our clients, we become part of those worlds too. Let's okay, so we've covered a lot of topics. I have some more questions, but I just want to sort of stop first and be like, is there like what other topics, like as we were like going along, like were you like, hey, I want to say something more about that, or like this is real, I want to like dive more into this?
I would say I would like to hear from the audience if like they have any questions that we'd like to dive more into. I kind of get in the zone and I go with these things. So I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a couple of questions here from the audience. It says, how do you handle change to meet deadlines? From Bishang.
How do we handle change to meet deadlines? I think it's generally, this is like a practice in project management that like inevitably happens with every project. There's always going to be something that comes up. There's always going to be something that changes, something that didn't go according to plan. And it's just about alignment, right? And that's why it's like so important for our team, our sales, our marketing, our CS, our developers and designers to be totally aligned on what we're delivering, how we're delivering it, and relaying that to the clients that we're working with.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'll also sort of chime in and say that like the easiest way to worry less about that is to deliver faster, because then it's like, look, let's just ship the first version, then we'll talk about that thing next or whatever. And you guys have already engineered your process for that.
Right, but I would say like people are far more forgiving with deadlines when there is alignment and communication. You know what I mean? And that I think is like one of the most important things to like take home from like going into any project, is like, as long as you're setting expectations and communicating when things shift and change, most of the time people will take that and you know, not beat you in the top of the head with a bat because of it.
Totally. Okay, Jewel, I think asks, can you speak about the approach on sales and leads with this modality? And I think it's the modular modality we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, we have an interesting growth channel. We have multiple growth channels. We're not really tied to like one particular channel. Obviously, being in B2B tech, we get a lot of referrals. It's a space where there's kind of like marketing leadership often moving from one company to another, and referrals are a big part of how we've been able to grow. The other piece is outbound, ABM. Like, we do a lot of outbound ourselves. So part of our sales process and growth strategy is getting leads ourselves and picking them out, you know, explaining the pain point that other you know, B2B tech companies are having in this space, and trying to like offer and educate them on a solution with Webstacks. Partnerships is also like a huge piece of what we're doing at Webstacks, and finding partnerships that are complementary to the other partnerships that you have. So for example, you know, we have partnerships with Segment, we have partnerships with Contentful, and partnerships with Gatsby, and partnerships with HubSpot. These are all four kind of like complementary technologies that allow us to, you know, get new business from multiple sources. And at the same time, it's not all about, you know, using a partnership as like a transactional kind of relationship. You don't want to like approach your partnerships with like, hey, can you give me leads? Hey, can you give me leads? It's like, can we find opportunities to help each other? Like something like this with Gatsby, or, you know, doing shared blog posts, co-marketing, and the opportunities will then come. But that's kind of like how we approach our acquisition strategy.
That's awesome. And you made the decision, when you guys were just even a few months into your agency, to sort of hire a sales rep. Can you talk a little bit about your thinking there?
Yeah. It's very important for us to build a company that wasn't so reliant on like a CEO or a founder or early employees, right? Like, you want to build something that can last the test of time, right? So that's part of all of this, is like creating a process that's repeatable, creating a process that people can buy into, understand the value that you're providing for your customers and your clients, and kind of like use that as what's driving, you know, the sales, rather than, you know, the CEO or the founder.
I mean, I also imagine it was maybe a bit of a weight off your shoulders. Not that you have to stop doing sales, but like someone else do it too.
That too, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. I think a lot of folks, you know, in your position, like it's just tough running a business. It's tough being the person who has to like figure out all the contract details, the person who's doing all the sales, and then the person who like does a lot of the delivery, you know, too, or sort of oversees that. And you know, the more you can get like folks that you trust to help on various aspects of that kind of work, it's just, I just imagine it like lets you be more free to like design these awesome processes that like, you know, ensure great client experiences that get you referrals, etc. Okay, so then Daniel asks, are you exclusively using Gatsby and Contentful? I may have missed that for a second.
We don't exclusively use anything. I would say Gatsby is a huge part, and Contentful is a huge part of our stack. The idea here behind, you know, what we're doing at Webstacks is like, we have this philosophy, we have this ideology, we have this idea of building a modern website on a modern stack. And that is hugely important to our sales process, our, you know, design process, our engineering processes, like, because we have the idea figured out and the concept of like a headless CMS and how the website is seen as being modular. Pulling in one piece for another isn't challenging. What I would say about Gatsby is that Gatsby in particular is a very, very helpful tool for onboarding our engineers, because they don't have to spend their time writing queries. Like, the Gatsby content layer is like a huge piece of the time saving that you might get in the onboarding process when building for Gatsby. So we are a huge proponent of using Gatsby. It probably takes up like 60 to 70% of the projects that that we build with, but we're not exclusive to any technology.
That's great to hear you kind of like outline the process. Okay, so you know,
And Sam, I think the link that I might have shared in the chat was not a public link. So let me just
if you post it again, we can do
let me
it.
just quickly share this one. I don't know if I can share it, so you might have to reshare it after I said it.
Here we go. Let's see.
Oh wait, that's the wrong link again.
No worries.
There you go.
Here we go. Okay, cool. I'm gonna post this to everyone here. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left, and I think we're gonna shift a little bit, maybe into like, you know, maybe a little bit more personal questions, and then kind of wrap up. So, you know, you're for you, like, this probably isn't like a 40-hour work week for you. How much, like, how do you balance, you know, work life? How do you think about that?
Yeah, great question. I would say that I try to have like a pretty balanced, you know, work-life workload. I think that's like part of building a company, is like being able to rely on your team, being able to rely on the individuals that you hire to bring on to help kind of alleviate that kind of stress. I know my fiance would probably say differently. She would probably say you have way more than a 40-hour work week, but I feel like I have a pretty balanced lifestyle. So it's really, it's about the hiring process, like being able to trust the team, being able to give responsibility, delegate the responsibility, and everything else kind of like falls into place.
So how long have you guys been together, you and your fiance?
My fiance and I have been together since Webstacks originated. Actually, she's like been there for the whole story. She was there, you know, when I quit my job and didn't have anything lined up, and just jumped into this freelance thing, and she's seen it grow into this like awesome team. So it's been a journey. She's been by my side ever since.
That's so great. So if she was, you know, if she was here, and I was asking her like how you're different or how you've sort of like changed over that journey, like what would she say?
She would probably say that I have far more patience now than I used to. I would say. I think there's like an innate desire, at least for myself, has always been to just solve problems on the fly, go, 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 go. But as a company grows, you kind of realize that like there's other people involved here. You can't have that same mindset. Maybe things that you're doing things that you're comfortable doing may be uncomfortable for other people, and patience and kind of like calming down has been one of the things that I have like grown as a person over the course of the last 2.5 years.
Love it.
Sure.
I love it. No, I'm a huge believer that, you know, personal growth and professional growth often like look fairly similar in a lot of ways, and they often go together. So great to hear great to hear your story there. That's great to have you share the story there. So I guess just to like sum this up, you know, there's a lot of folks here who are, you know, maybe working in an agency, or who are like, you know, just freelancers, or maybe they're just in tech, or maybe they're even looking to break into tech. So are you guys hiring?
We're always hiring. We're always hiring. Yes, absolutely. If you guys go to www.webstacks.com/careers, you can take a look at all of the opportunities that we have available. And yeah, if you're interested in what we're doing here, please feel free to apply. We're excited to meet you.
Okay. Cool. So I think we're getting a couple of other questions, and then we'll just wrap this up. So someone wants to know the name of the camera you are using. They say, LOL, it is really nice.
The camera is a Apple Cinema display. It's 2 Apple Cinema displays. So it seems like it's moving with me, but I think Apple has some cool technology that's like following and tracking me without like a physical camera moving.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've got a portal and it does that. You know, it's not on my computer, but like it's a really nice effect.
Yeah. Everyone asks about it. It's a great like icebreaker for sales conversations.
That's great. Let's see. Then someone else asks. Nicole Phillips asks, "What would you do differently? Any advice on what to avoid?"
What would I do differently? I honestly hate that question. I'm like a firm believer in like, you know, sticking with what you've done and not really regretting decisions that have happened. So I'm pretty proud of like how things have kind of like unfolded at Webstacks, and every kind of like setback has been a learning experience. So I wouldn't say there's there's one particular thing I would have done differently.
That's a great way of, I think, ending it. So, Nikan, thanks for coming and joining us. Thanks for sharing the lessons that you've learned with the with the rest of the Gatsby community and the Gatsby agency community in particular. It's really great to have you here. And thanks everybody for coming. You should receive a link with a recording in a couple days once we get that sort of transcribed. And thanks again for coming. It's good to have everyone here.
Sweet. Thanks, everyone.
Good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Until next time.